The purpose of this video today is to capture how we make the pink bows for the TieTheTownPink campaign by Soul Riders. I've pre-cut some pieces of the ribbon because that is a big part of the task. So it's best to do a bunch of the cutting before you ever start the assembly. So we have basically 4 lengths that we work with. The 12 footers, which I also have one over here. We have a 6-foot length, 3-foot length, and then these are 16 to 18 inches, but I'll explain it later how we made those smaller. Okay, so to start this project, you will have some spools of this beautiful pink ribbon. You need sharp scissors. You'll find on your first cut, if they're not sharp, you'll be very unhappy. A stapler, and then really you just need a tape to get your first 12-footer, 6-footer, 3-footer, and 16 inches. Then once you've measured those, keep those as your guide. Mark them so you can use them each time you sit down to cut. And that's it. Okay. So one of the tricky parts can be cutting the ribbon, and there's lots of different techniques to make it more efficient. When you're working alone, we discovered a pretty easy technique here. So basically, I have pre-cut a length of the 12-foot, the 6-foot, and the 3-foot, and you use that as your guide. Thank you. So basically, I've got a 12-footer right here. That's the most cumbersome to work with. I've thrown it off the end of the table. And basically, I'm going to line these two up, and I'm going to put this roll towards myself because otherwise it starts rolling away. And basically, I'm just going to run them side by side through my fingers. I wanted to do a 6-footer, but you might as well see the 12-footer since that's the one that takes up the most room if you don't do this technique. When I get to the end, then I can simply snip it to the same length and go back again the other direction. This part, we are going to create the makings of the bow. So we start with our 12-foot length, and we're trying to do, it's approximately 12 inches top to bottom. So I put one finger at the top and then one finger at the bottom to hold the 2 parts together. And basically, it's just a hand over hand motion. It's a little awkward the first time you do it. And sometimes that end tail slips out. But nothing's critical about this, basically just getting it rolled up in roughly equal lengths. Okay, so once I have it rolled up, you're not sure where the 2 tails are going to end up. So you can pretty much adjust it so that when you staple it in the middle, you just want to make sure that both of those tails are going to be stapled. So I'm just going to adjust this a little. And I'm going to staple it right in the center. Again, the reason being we like to do some of this pre-assembly to make things easier later. So one of the keys to working with this bow is because it's thick, it doesn't bend, it doesn't want to do a lot of things. So what we have to do is we have to put notches in the center of all the pieces that we're going to put together. Otherwise, you can't get them to cinch together. So basically, in the middle of this, we are going to cut 2 triangles. And this is probably one of the trickier parts just because you need good scissors and your hands get tired. And then you end up with all these little triangles all over your house. So we're going to cut these 2 triangles out. I'm going to attempt to, on either side of the center staple. This is what this piece should look like. It's the 12-footer wrapped all the way around, stapled in the middle with 2 little notches on either side. Okay, now we're going to make the tails to go with the bow, and we're going to put them all together. Again, I've pre-cut my 6-footers and my 3-footers also. And I'll show you some of these tasks you can do at the same time. So here I have, 6 lengths of my 6-foot pieces. So what I want to do is, because these are the pretty tails that are going to show on the ends, we want the ends to look pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the raw ends, I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to snip back up towards the center of the bow, and it makes a little V on the tail. You may cut it backwards once or twice, hopefully only once, because then it is facing the wrong directions. So again, I'm going to do, if you work with, you know, maybe 5 or 6 pieces of ribbon, you can still get through it with the scissors. More than that, it gets a little hard. Okay, then I'm going to take these and I'm going to fold it in half again. And now what I need to do is to create that same V that's in the center here in the middle of my 6-foot length. So, you know what I'm going to, so again, in order to get this V, I folded it in the middle and I'm snipping toward the ends towards the center, but I do want to make sure I leave enough space in the center because this is going to get stapled into the center of this bow. And that's basically the next, so I've done that for the 6-footer. I'm going to do the same for the 3-footers. And again, when you're working in an assembly line, it is easier if, you know, more people do certain tasks and it becomes, the process goes much quicker. So again, I'm clipping off the ends to make the pretty tails, folding it in the center. And again, it's not critical that everything is perfectly lined up because it all looks pretty at the end. Creating this V. So again, I have these pieces. So I'm now going to take one of my 6-footers, one of my 3-footers, and the bow. And at this point, we found it was easier to staple it together again, so things stop shifting and then you can put it down and come back to it. So basically, again, it's not really, it doesn't matter with the 3s split, the 6s on top. You just want one of each, and again, you're going to staple it together. So we're almost there, and at this point is what we're talking about. This is an easy way to then store these items in this size before we do the next. So if we're making them in advance, what I found myself doing was just kind of loosely rolling them. And then we should be able to, you know, a simple rubber band, we should be able to put these in envelopes, put them, store them in boxes so that we can make these as far in advance as possible. Now we're ready to turn the makings of our bow into our pretty product. So we may have had them stored like this, or this may be how you're finding your new bow. It may be a little curly when you unroll it, but it should unroll. What we're then going to do is we have made these 16-inch lengths, which is basically just 1/3. We just put a little snip. I cut 1, 2, okay, just 2 little snips, and that's how you get them into thirds. So that's nice for these pieces, which are basically one of the ties that's going to be used to hold the bow on smaller items. So again, I'm going to use this piece. My notches are in the center. It's all stapled together, and basically I'm just tying a tight knot here. And this is where you do scrunch the bow, and you want it tight because the hardest part of working with this ribbon is that it's stiff and it doesn't want to scrunch. So there you go. It's not pretty on the back side. It's fine on the front side, but you're beginning the scrunch, which is what is going to help us turn it into the bow. So the next step we fondly dubbed poofing last year, and it was scary to many, but not quite as challenging as it looks. So basically what you're starting with is all the legs of the bow are kind of caught inside of each other. So what we're trying to do is get them out and pull them out. And this part you want to be a little bit tough with the ribbon, otherwise it's just going to keep tucking back in. So I use my 2 index fingers, and you start from the inside. And I pull one out and really give it a tug. You go to the other side, give it a tug. You're trying not to grab the ribbon and crunch it because that will cause creases that are hard to get out, but basically you are trying to squish it in this area. So you're trying to get each one and pull it out. So basically I just go back and forth, give it a tug, Give it a tug. The first side looks a little awkward till you get them all out, and then you turn the bow and just start on the next side. So then it's pull from the inside, pull it forward, pull it forward, pull it forward. And you can hear little bits of the ribbon giving, little bits of it, it might be breaking at the center, but again, it doesn't matter, it's not gonna fall apart. The goal is just to pull each of the bows away from each other. And, you know, try not to put major creases in it. It's really, okay, so let's see, what did we end up with? Each one is individual work of art, work of love, but they have their own beauty. Now you see I did actually scrunch a little right there, so actually I'm gonna pull that down just to improvise since I did tear the ribbon too hard. So basically the smaller tie on the back can then go, it's great on, you know, door knockers, lampposts, gates. If you have something larger you're tying it, kind of the smaller trees, you could then use the 3-foot pieces to tie around that item. And then for some of those really big trees in town, you use the longer pieces to tie it around. And I guess that's it. Good luck.